I'm Buzz McDonald. I'm from Oklahoma City and a member of St. Paul's, and I'm Caddo Indian. And I'm pleased to be here today to talk about our upcoming Ochre Haters Sunday celebration.
Thank you.
And I'm Blue Clark, also from Oklahoma City, also a member of St. Paul's Cathedral, and I'm enrolled in Muskogee Creek, and I eagerly anticipate the events leading up to the honor dance.
Excellent. So, do y'all want to share a little bit of how long you've been in the Episcopal Church and your involvement in your respective tribes?
I'll let you lead the way on that.
Forever. Many years, and my late mother, Lois Clark, preceded me in national activities dealing with Indians within the Episcopal Church. And upon her passing, I filled in briefly for her, and I continued to serve on the Diocesan Council on Indian Ministry.
I too am a member of OCIM, the Council for Indian Ministry, and as chairperson, I came into that role primarily at the insistence of my sister, the retired Reverend Canon Carol Hampton. And I guess my involvement with St. Paul's goes back to maybe the 2005, 2006 time frame. And I've been a member of the vestry, and more deeply I get involved with St. Paul's, the more I learn, the more I like it. So it's been a great time, and we're preparing to celebrate what I think is going to be an outstanding Ochre Hater Sunday celebration. And hopefully that when you see this, you'll want to come and be part of the crowd that gets to hear a gentleman by the name of Harvey Pratt preach, who is a member of the Cheyenne Council of 44 Peace Chiefs and a noted forensic artist and artist. Talk about being Cheyenne and what Ochre Hater means to all of us. So.
And Harvey Pratt is also, who has come to the cathedral previously in years past, is the winner of the honor to prepare the Native American National Memorial for veterans, Native veterans, on the Mall in Washington, D.C. And we anticipate, Buzz and I assume, that he will talk at the 10:10 hour about that award-winning design, how it came to him in a vision, how it was developed, and what he hopes to accomplish with it.
When I read about it, you know, he realized that there's a circle to life, and the trees are round, teepees are round, and his memorial is a round item that I think it's 14 feet high and has a circle above a stone drum, and then an area of seating around it that's also round. And the circle means a lot to Native American tribes, and when we meet in groups, we normally will sit in a circle rather than in rows. But Harvey is just a really interesting person, and you should Google up some of the things that he's done. If you just Google him up and then inquire about somebody called Sand Man, it'll be intriguing reading that I won't spoil it for you, so I suggest that you do that.
Yeah, I Googled him and he has a great website with all of his artwork you can purchase, and all of his whole resume. It's just impressive. And he was a Marine in the U.S., so obviously,
Vietnam War.
Yeah. But can you say more about the Peace Chief thing that we were talking about at lunch? I think that might be interesting.
I'm going to let Blue talk about that.
Okay. Yeah.
Peace Chiefs guide the spirituality and spiritual development of Cheyenne youth, Cheyenne elders, members of the tribe, their family members. Peace Chiefs are separate from the tribal governing structure and carry on traditional ceremonial approaches to living, to life, to service, worshiping the creative force of the universe and paying honor to it. And there are annual ceremonies that precede their gathering called a Sundance, the Life Generator Lodge. And Harvey Pratt is one of those peace chiefs who participate in that. And his art, while not revealing any secrets, certainly represents a ceremonial approach to life. And we eagerly, Buzz and I, anticipate him sharing some of those insights when he comes to the cathedral.
You mentioned that he was a Marine, and when he was in the Marine Corps, he kept, I'll let him tell that, I'm not sure what it was, but it was his medicine that kept him safe. You know, he had with him in his entire Marine Corps, and whenever he was doing his forensic artist drawings of what a deceased person might have looked like, or maybe someone they're hunting a suspect, he would often invoke tribal medicine to help him do that, and that's an interesting story as well, and that's why I think it's going to be absolutely the best forum that we've ever had at 1010 when he can talk about anything and everything Indian. So I'm sure the questions will just go. We may have to cancel the 11 o'clock.
Just keep talking.
Go. Yeah. So he really is one of the most interesting people that Blue and I have ever met. So.
Yeah. He seems like an incredible, rich history just living in his body and his
very
art
much.
and his work.
He retired, maybe it's been a year ago now, from the OSBI. And anybody and everybody that was in law enforcement in Oklahoma, I think, was there.
Wow.
But made me a little nervous to be around that many officers.
Is this Ochre Hater Sunday, is that something we do every year in preparation for the honor dance?
Yes, when Ochre Hater was added to the calendar of how do we say it? Holy people. His feast day is the first Sunday in September, and so it's an annual occurrence. And we'll start with the cattle drum processing members of my tribe, and then we'll open with a prayer called the Prayer of the Four Directions, and instead of incense, we'll be burning sweetgrass this time. So.
Nice. Share with us the history of how he became one of the saints on the calendar, or revered as a holy person in our church.
He had been a leader. He had been a war leader, a warrior, and was widely respected, widely regarded positively by his fellow troops, or warriors, and by his tribal members. And in the aftermath of the so-called Red River War in the mid-1870s, he was shipped with other male and 2 or 3 females by cattle car. The males were in chains to the east, and they ended up in the Spanish prison in St. Augustine, Castillo de San Marcos. For about a week, were chained to the walls, but then the commander realized they're not going anyplace. And they're not going to swim back to the Great Plains, so he released them within the prison. They were given guard uniforms to select their own guards, and the prisoners knew making medicine, and they selected him as the head of the guards to follow his decisions or orders, and life went on. They're still prisoners, and over time, the Anglo members of the St. Augustine city community came and requested that they be put to construction and house repair service labor within the city. And they were paid a few pennies, just a very modest sum. They could then thereby, in the community coming back to the prison each evening, buy something of some kind that they wanted. They could support themselves, so to speak. And then they became noted. Lots of Eastern leaders and their families wintered in St. Augustine in Florida. Many still do in the United States. And they visited the prisoners with the permission of the commandant. And among those were children of families, and the prisoners, some of the prisoners would practice their English, and they would have archery and those sorts of things for youth and then adults. And in the case of a senator from Ohio, he and his wife and daughters became good friends with making medicine. And once they were released in 1878 to return home, they sponsored, this Ohio senator's family sponsored the expenses of making medicine to go on with theological training. And he ended up in New York State. Ultimately, it was quickly determined he could not stay with the Burnham deacon, a female deacon, who lived in a large house by herself. So they moved him to Reverend Wicks's home, large home, lots of children, big house, and he studied successfully to be a deacon. And his written correspondence with Miss Burnham, Deaconess Burnham, details his experiences at the Wicks's home, undergoing his training, and the deep thoughts that he had theologically about his own life, what course he was going to take in the future. And there are some charming incidents in his correspondence. He does not say, but you have to assume that the children of the young children at the block flocked to him because here's an Indian. He was dark. Mm-hmm. And he had made bows and arrows for himself, sinew and the branches of the trees, bird feathers. And he would go out in the front yard and as a warrior, a hunter, he'd shoot birds out of the trees. I suspect the children of the neighborhood flocked around and said, "Hey, mister, what are you doing?" But one of his letters says clearly that he was struck one day and he looked up and then he stopped shooting a bird and he sat down in the shade and he thought about this. And he came to a determination that Jesus Christ did not want him to kill again. So he gave to Deaconess Burnham his arrows, bows, had 2 of them, as I recall, 2 bows, lots of arrows. And he stopped. He became a, shall we call it, a peace chief at that point. There are many other stories from his correspondence. Then once his training ended, and he was ordained a deacon, then he came back to Western Oklahoma to his own people, but also to other Western tribes in Western Oklahoma, and served not quite a half century into the 1930s before he passed away. You can get into an argument as to how much help he had, but largely he was, most of the time, on his own ministering. Mm-hmm. And his correspondence stops because he gets busy.
Right. When did he get his new name, David Pendleton?
He took, prior to his ordination, he took English names to simplify. I cannot even pronounce what his Cheyenne name, Making Medicine, was. That's a very rough English translation of it. One who makes medicine in the Life Generator Lodge is actually what it is. So he took David from the Bible, whom he had studied, and he took Pendleton for Senator George Pendleton of Ohio of the U.S. Senate, who had sponsored and paid for his theological training. And he referred to himself, as the family did thereafter, as David Pendleton. And then, as a result of his ministry and his fame within Indian country, joining other American Indian ministers in the National Episcopal Church historically, in 1985 he was made a saint or a holy person within the National Episcopal Church. And that brings us back to Buzz's comments about Okarheter Sunday. That's the reason we're celebrating him and other indigenous ministers.
Right. How about the word Okarheter?
I'm not even, we can ask Harvey Pratt to pronounce it in Cheyenne.
Okay.
It is the Cheyenne pronunciation of one who makes medicine.
Okay, gotcha. So how about the honor dance? Let's get into that. What is that all about?
This will be the 33rd
Really?
consecutive year for the honor
That's
dance.
so
That's a
cool.
shocker.
Yeah, it is. And this is going to be a celebration on September 14th at Church of the Holy Trinity in Watauga, which is a mission church, I guess, that we have in the Episcopal Church that has a dance ground. And weather permitting, it'll be outside. If not, we'll move it to the Watauga
Community Center
building that they have, where we've had it on several occasions. It's a great dance that starts off with round dancing, gore dancing at usually about 2 o'clock, and then there's a meal that the church will serve to anybody and everybody. And the grand entry is scheduled for roughly 7 o'clock that evening, and it'll be a dance schedule that often lasts into the wee hours of the morning. Be fancy dancing, grass dancing, several specials that families can request in which they may want to make a presentation. And usually there's about 10 or so people who are singers, and we'll sit around the drum and sing the dances. There will be an honored veteran that they always will recognize, just like Harvey is a Marine. There will be a veteran that is selected, and the colors will be presented. Native Americans have a really envious record of military involvement in the U.S. Just an illustrious career, and even Medal of Honor winners. So it'll be a grand time. And if you haven't been to a dance, you need to come and see this. And I don't dance that well myself, but blues pretty good.
And the bishop does Eucharist too, right?
Bishop Ed
It frequently does,
the middle,
yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, he has supported this very well, and this, I guess, will be his last one. But he's done a grand job of supporting OCIM and in Indian ministry.
Wonderful.
Bishop Curry attended maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
The presiding bishop has participated in the past.
Yeah.
That's great. What are there different tribes that come, or is it just one tribe that's involved?
Heavily Cheyenne and Arapaho, because we're in their territory.
Okay.
And the mission is located inside their former boundaries. But it attracts Indians from all different tribes, cultural backgrounds, family members, gawkers, tourists. In the past, busloads of different Episcopalians have come and viewed it. it's wide open to anyone who is spiritually inclined.
So it's not just, I mean, what I think is cool about it is there seems to be an intertwining of the Christian faith tradition stuff, like the
Yes.
Eucharist.
Yes.
And then there's the native dance and the native
Yes.
spirituality that's kind of blended in there.
This is the very, I don't want, it's easy to get into an argument, but I'm told that this was the very first Indian powwow that involved a direct Christian Eucharist. And it's still carried on. That's inside the church at the altar. And anyone is welcome to come and participate who's been baptized. And then the dancing takes up after dinner is served. So it has a lengthy history to it.
It's so beautiful.
But in response to asking about tribes, you know, Pat Gonzalez is the deacon in charge of Kiowa.
Okay.
We've had the Comanche Red Ponies come up and be part of the celebration before. And Pawnee have been there, and Osage, I think. And then, as I mentioned, I'm Caddo. Been some Caddo involvement. So, yeah, it's open. It's an open tribal type of gathering. The more the merrier.
As I would reinforce that by saying that the Caddo singers on September 1 at the Okerator Sunday celebration at the cathedral, we have seen those young men who sing with their families grow up. They were youngsters when it first began, but now they are bringing their own youngsters as they carry the drum in and sing as the procession enters.
That's wonderful. That's great. Anything else you think of?
I was struck as you all were talking about earlier about how you talked about ceremony and the role of ceremony in Native culture, and talking about Harvey Pratt and ceremony, and how we talk about ceremony in our Episcopal tradition as sacrament in a lot of ways, and that connection between sacrament and ceremony, and that
Very much.
At the honor dance in a lot of ways, and in Okerator Sunday, we're blending two things that have different words but are very similar.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Both take lots of effort behind the scenes to bring about.
Yeah, we'll open the Sunday ceremony, the Okerator Sunday, with the prayer to the four directions, and what is symbol. You know, we'll start with the east, and then I think it goes southwest and then north, and then the circle will be completed again, a circle. So.
Love it. Well, thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you.
I think this was really, really wonderful.
What is in the center of that window is the signature that David Pendleton used to sign his name, in essence, to his correspondence when he wrote from the prison to home or received communication from home to him as a prisoner in St. Augustine. That is him standing, making medicine, standing inside the Sundance Lodge, and there's the sun showing that it's the Sundance Lodge, and it's called a glyph, G-L-Y-P-H, because in European languages you don't sign your name with a picture. This is America Meredith's painting of him. She's currently the publisher and editor of the leading indigenous art magazine of the Western Hemisphere. First American art magazine. And if you see the colors of the archway, those are the traditional ceremonial spiritual colors of the Cheyenne.
Representing the four directions, or?
Yes, and Cheyenne is slightly askew, northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. They're not the cardinal directions, which is unusual, but it's the symbolism of those. And these are the ceremonial colors and symbolic spiritual colors. Every tribe has or had those at one time. We Creeks have colors, but they're not as widely used.